Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I was 51 when I took the job in the bunker outside Narva, in northeastern Estonia. Not a soldier, not security, not one of the survivalist operators that the family hired. Just an electrician with a van full of tools and a stomach that complained if I skipped lunch. The place had been built in the late 1970s by the Soviets as a communications and command node, then sealed when they pulled out. The prepping family who bought it were from Tallinn: father, mother, 2 adult sons, and a teenage daughter. They planned to turn it into a self-sufficient shelter with diesel backup, solar on the surface, water treatment, hydroponics, the whole thing. My contract was for 3 weeks. Rip out the worst of the old wiring, test the grounding, install new distribution panels, and make the diesel generator actually cooperate with a modern automatic transfer switch. By the day it happened, I was in my 2nd week and already sick of the smell. Even after decades, you could still feel the bunker the moment you stepped through the outer blast door. Cold concrete, metal, and old oil. There was a short entrance tunnel from the forest, a concrete ramp that went down at a gentle angle, ending at the first blast door. The door was a slab of steel about 50 centimeters thick, counterweighted, with a manual wheel to lock the dogs in place. The inner door was the same. Between them was a decontamination chamber that now held crates of canned food and water barrels. They had me sleeping in one of the upper dorm rooms. 6 bunks, cheap mattresses from an IKEA run, wool blankets. My toolbox lived on the bunk underneath mine. The survivalists tried to keep the place neat, but there was always dust and rust flakes. Every time I dragged cable trays along the ceiling, it rained brown and orange. The infection was already in the news, of course. At first, everyone called it a strange flu. Then videos started circulating. People collapsing, then standing up again in ways that did not look right at all. Major cities were hit first. Tallinn had its share of panic, but my work was far enough out that it felt abstract. The family had planned this bunker as a long-term project. The crisis just made them accelerate their schedule. By that Monday morning, the national emergency line had been busy for hours. The father, Andres, kept the radio on in the control room almost non-stop. The control room was my favorite part of the bunker. A low, wide space with line after line of old consoles. Most of the original electronics were long dead, but the old steel racks were perfect places to mount new equipment. I had installed a fresh main breaker panel, a bank of uninterrupted power supply units, and a patch panel for Ethernet lines that snaked through the bunker like new veins laid alongside the old. At around 9:30, I came in carrying a roll of 3-core copper cable, 2.5 square millimeters, to finish a line to the lower dormitory lights. The radio was murmuring something in Estonian. Andres had his phone on the desk beside a handheld radio. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. "Morning," I said. "The main corridor lights by the lower dorm are still tripping the old breaker. I'm going to pull a new feed from the panel." He nodded, barely listening. "Do what you need, John. We may have to stay down here longer than we planned." The screen of his phone showed missed calls from Tallinn. Mobile coverage in the bunker was bad, but we had a small signal booster near the entrance. It worked as long as the outside network did. His younger son, Rasmus, leaned over the map table, where they had spread out an old Soviet site plan with their own notes in blue marker. "The city is closing the hospitals to visitors," he said. "They say it is to control infection, but people are saying it is already out of control." "News always exaggerates," I said automatically. He just looked at me. "You have seen the videos." I had. People staggering down streets, emergency workers trying to restrain them. Then the videos cut. The next ones that circulated were more filtered. Nothing too graphic, but enough to see that whatever this was, it was not normal. "We finished the wiring," Andres said. "We get the generator tested. If the grid goes down, we close up. That was the plan." "The plan was to finish at the end of the week and go back to Tallinn," I said. He did not answer. That was the first sign that the plan had changed. By noon, the emergency line in Estonia stopped accepting calls. Instead, you got a recorded message telling you to stay at home, avoid contact, and wait for further instructions. We all listened to it once on speakerphone while standing in the corridor. "Stay at home," Rasmus said, almost laughing. "We are not even in the same county as home anymore." His older brother, Mart, wore a pistol on his belt when he walked the corridors. It was a Glock in 9mm, bought legally years back. He checked the magazine more often than necessary. There were 2 more pistols in the strong room and a couple of older rifles. A semi-automatic hunting rifle in 7.62, a pump-action shotgun. Enough to feel armed, not enough to pretend we were a professional security team. They also had 3 hired guards, former military, all in their 30s or 40s. Estonian Army veterans, by the look and the way they walked. They handled perimeter patrols on the surface and shifts at the entrance. They were polite to me, but they kept their own circle. By the evening, the family called everyone into the main common room. The common room had once been a briefing hall with a low stage. Now it held folding tables, plastic chairs, and a big whiteboard with the task lists written on it. Above the whiteboard, someone had taped a laminated sign, "No panic, follow procedures." Andres stood by the board, hand on his hip. His wife, Katie, sat at one of the tables, her laptop open, though the internet was already unreliable. "We need to be clear," Andres said. "From now on, consider the bunker sealed. No one leaves unless it is absolutely necessary. Mobile networks are failing in different regions. There are reports of chaotic behavior in cities." "You say that like it is just chaotic behavior," Rasmus said. "People are attacking each other, Father." "We do not know the exact situation," Katie said a little too quickly. "They wanted order. I understood. But I watched the line of faces. The guards, the sons, the daughter, the small group of other workers still finishing tasks. There were 5 of us contractors left. Me, a plumber, a ventilation technician, a guy doing concrete repairs, and a young systems engineer in charge of configuring the control computer for the generator and solar controllers. "We have enough supplies?" one of the guards asked. Andres nodded. "Food and water for months if we ration sensibly. Diesel for at least 6 months with moderate consumption. The well pump is deep enough. Filtration works. But we cannot treat this as a drill. Once we close the outer blast door fully, we will only open it by agreement." "How many people down here total?" I asked. 17, Katie said. "That includes all of you, the 3 guards, and the family." 17 people in a concrete box under a pine forest, while something very bad moved across the country. I tried to focus on the practicalities. "I still have to finish the new feed to the lower dormitory," I said. "The old line runs parallel with some corroded conduit. If it shorts, you will keep tripping breakers." "Do what you need to do," Andres said. "But stay inside, no more trips to town." He did not have to say that the last hardware run had been 3 days ago. Nobody was eager to go back up the access road to the highway now. The next day, the calls stopped completely. Mobile networks showed bars but no data. Calls did not go through, or they connected with the harsh digital noise and then dropped. Radio stations aired pre-recorded messages. The only thing that still seemed to update was a small shortwave receiver one of the guards had brought. Through static, you could sometimes hear foreign stations, some of them talking about mass disturbances and critical infrastructure outages. I buried myself in work. The main distribution room was near the center of the bunker, a concrete vault filled with cabinets. The original Soviet system had been built for redundancy. 2 feeds from the grid, plus a huge old diesel generator on a concrete base and battery banks that were long dead. The prepping family had added a modern 20 kilovolt-ampere diesel unit with electronic controls, plus a new bank of batteries using lithium iron phosphate cells in a rack. My job was to ensure the new generator and batteries could take over instantly if the grid failed, without frying anything or backfeeding power where it did not belong. I had wired a new automatic transfer switch between the incoming grid line and the internal bus bar. I double-checked every connection, using a torque screwdriver to make sure each lug was tightened to spec. On the morning the grid finally went, I was standing right in front of that panel. At 11:42, the overhead lights flickered once, twice. The control computer beeped. A moment later, there was a solid, deep thump somewhere beneath my boots as the diesel motor started. The room vibrated slightly, the way only a big generator can make concrete vibrate. On the wall screen, the system software showed the grid line drop to 0. Bus bar voltage dipped for a fraction of a second, then stabilized as the generator picked up the load. "Automatic transfer successful," I said aloud, partly for my own satisfaction. Rasmus's voice came over the internal intercom. "John, did you see that? The grid is gone. We are on our own now?" "We are on the generator," I said. "As long as we have diesel, nothing changes down here, but yes, the grid is down." The bunker had been designed for that. Backup power, independent air handling, its own water. Where the design failed was human nature. The first coughing fit started that night in the lower dormitory. The lower dormitory had been part of a medical section originally. Long, narrow room, 4 rows of bunks, a small nurse's station at one end. The prepping family had turned it into sleeping space for contractors and guards. The family themselves slept in a smaller set of rooms on the upper level. I was supposed to be sleeping in the upper dorm, but I'd gone down to the lower level to check which lights were still tied to the old circuits. The corridor down there was narrow, painted a boring cream that was now stained with age. Pipes ran along the ceiling. Water, fire suppression, compressed air lines that were no longer in use. As I walked past the dorm door, I heard someone cough, hard and wet. The sound echoing down the hallway made it seem louder. Inside, the ventilation technician, a Ukrainian named Misha, sat on the edge of his bunk, hunched over, hand pressed to his chest. "You okay?" I asked from the doorway. He waved me off. "Just dust. These vents are full of it." "You've been working around filters all week," I said. "Wear your mask." He pointed to a fabric mask lying on his pillow. "I know. I only took it off to drink. Now my throat is paying me back." He coughed again, deeper this time. Behind him, one of the guards, a tall man named Peter, looked up from cleaning his rifle on the lower bunk. "We have masks," Peter said. "Use them." "It is nothing," Misha said. He sounded annoyed, but beneath that, I heard something like fear. I did not push it. I had a multimeter in my hand and a panel open a little way down the corridor. I had my own job to finish. That was my mistake, or at least the first one. The next morning, Misha did not show up for breakfast. We gathered in the common room as usual. Katie made porridge and coffee on the electric range. The family had insisted we keep some routines. Shared meals, daily briefings. It helped keep people grounded. "Where is Misha?" the concrete worker asked, looking around the tables. He sent a message, Mart said. Said he is not feeling well. He is staying in the dorm. Katie frowned. We should have the doctor look at him. We did not have a real doctor, just a nurse who had retired from the local clinic. Her name was Lise, small, gray-haired, practical. She had set up a basic infirmary in the old medical room with a fridge full of antibiotics, pain medicine, and supplies. I will go after breakfast, she said. But if it is just a cold, he should stay in bed and drink water. Keep your mask on, Andres said, just in case. It felt paranoid then. By the end of the day, it did not. I spent most of the morning tracing circuits. Some of the original labels had fallen off the panels decades ago. I had to identify each feed by turning off breakers and seeing what died. Over the intercom, I asked people to tell me when lights went off in their section. It was slow work, but almost soothing compared to worrying about the world outside. Around midday, the nurse's voice came over the intercom, tight and clipped. Andres, I need you in the lower dormitory. And Mart, bring masks and gloves. I was in the main corridor when I heard it. The sound of her voice made the hairs stand up on my arms. I set down my screwdriver and walked toward the stairwell down to the lower level. Nobody told me to come. I just felt I should. At the lower dormitory door, I stopped. Lias stood just inside, face mask on, latex gloves pulled over her small hands. Mart stood near the foot of Misha's bunk, also masked. Misha lay on the mattress, sweating, his eyes red-rimmed. His breathing was too fast, too shallow. He said it was just dust, I said quietly from the doorway. Lias looked back at me. Whatever this is, it is not just dust. He has a fever. He says he feels like his muscles are burning. He has a headache, confusion. He does not remember collapsing, but Peter says he did during the night. Maybe flu, Marty said, though he did not sound convinced. The flu does not come on this fast, Lise said, and we cannot be sure this is the same thing that is happening outside, but we would be stupid to assume it is not. So what do we do? Mart asked. We isolate him, she said. He stays here. Anyone who has been sleeping in this room is now in isolation too. No one else uses this dorm until I say otherwise. We increase cleaning, masks in the corridors, gloves if you're touching anything coming from here. I leaned on the doorframe. What about the air, the vents? Misha tried to sit up, then fell back with a groan. I was working on the filters 2 days ago, he said hoarsely. I cleaned the intake. I did not go outside. Maybe it came in on someone else, Mart said, or before we closed up. Lias looked at me. We need the ventilation layout. I nodded. The main intake and exhaust are on the roof. Air comes in through the main duct, then splits. One line for the upper level, one for the lower. There are separate branches for the medical rooms and dormitories. If we close the dampers for the lower dorm, we can isolate most of its airflow, but we will need to confirm the seals are still good. Do it, she said. We cannot stop breathing, but we can limit the mixing between sections. I will go to the air shaft, I said. Misha grabbed my sleeve weakly as I turned away. His hand felt hot even through my work shirt. John, he whispered, if this goes bad, do not let me. His voice broke. He coughed, shuddering. You are going to be okay, I said, because that is what you say. Then I pulled his hand gently away and left the room. The ventilation room was on the upper level, near the center of the bunker, behind a heavy steel door with faded warning signs. Inside, there were big centrifugal fans the size of cars, motor housings, ducts the diameter of barrels. The Soviets had built this place to stay sealed for weeks if necessary, with overpressure valves and filters for particles and chemical agents. Misha had already done some work here. A new bank of filters sat in fresh steel frames. Some of the older ducts had been patched where corrosion had eaten through. I traced the lower branch that fed the dormitories and infirmary. There were manual dampers with big handles, plus newer electric actuators tied into the control system. I did not want to rely on software. I climbed onto the steel platform, put on gloves, and turned the manual damper handles for the lower dorm branch until they hit their stops. It would not completely isolate them. Air had a way of finding tiny leaks, but it would reduce flow between that room and the rest of the bunker. As I worked, the industrial fan hummed, pushing cool, slightly metallic air through the ducts. I listened to the vibration and thought about an invisible thing moving in that air. Not gas, not smoke. Something that turned people into the staggering figures from the videos. When I came back down, I met Andres in the corridor. "How bad is it?" I asked. "Lee says he is very ill," he said, voice low. "She has started him on antibiotics in case there is a bacterial component, though she is not hopeful. Fever that high, so fast. It looks like what we have been hearing about." "So it is here," I said. "We had to expect it," he replied. "We closed as fast as we could, but people came and went for weeks." "Everyone in that dorm has been exposed already," I said. "And everyone else has shared meals, worked in the same corridors," he said. "We are going to assume possible exposure for the whole bunker. That is the safest way to think about it." "So now what?" "Now we enforce hygiene, isolation where practical, and we hope the bunker saves us instead of trapping us," he said. That was the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. 2 days later, the coughing spread. By then, the atmosphere in the bunker had changed. People wore masks in the corridors, some the disposable kind, some reusable half-face respirators with filters. We wiped down door handles and handrails with disinfectant. Schedules were posted for showers, meals, and bathroom use to limit crowding. The guards changed their routine. Instead of rotating between surface patrol and entrance duty, they kept one man topside, 2 at the inner and outer doors. They had bolt cutters ready to cut the chain on the outer blast door wheel if needed, and a manual bar to lock it in place from the inside. They checked the external CCTV feeds regularly. 4 cameras, half hidden in trees around the entrance path, plus one above the blast door itself. The video showed a quiet forest, patches of snow still in the shady spots under the pines. Once, a fox trotted past, nose to the ground. No people. Inside, though, we had our own crisis. The concrete worker got sick first, then one of the guards who shared the lower dormitory. Lise moved all 3 of them into the old medical rooms, keeping them together. Those who had slept in different rooms but spent time with them were told to isolate if possible. "Isolate," the plumber said, irritated. "We all breathe the same air. What difference does it make?" "There is a difference between sharing air in a long, diluted corridor and having someone cough in your face for 8 hours, La said. "We do what we can." I kept working because I did not know what else to do. I checked the load on the generator, trying to stretch the diesel supply. We cut non-essential lights, turned off the recreational room television, and shut down unused fans. Everything that produced heat or noise without real benefit went off. The bunker became quieter, more echoing. At night, some people had trouble sleeping. The walls were not soundproof. You could hear coughing from the medical rooms, carried along the corridor. Sometimes it was just a harsh bark. Other times it went on until you found yourself timing the gaps and wondering if it would stop entirely. On the 3rd night, it did. I woke up in my bunk in the upper dorm and knew something was wrong, though I could not say what at first. The air felt different, still and heavy. No fans running on low. Just the subtle hum of the generator through the concrete. Then the intercom crackled. "All security to the lower level," Peter's voice said, flat and urgent. "Now! And someone get John to the control room." I rolled off the bunk, pulled on my work boots without tying the laces properly, grabbed my headlamp and ran. The control room was lit only by the screens when I arrived. Rasmus sat at the main console, eyes wide, hands hovering over the keyboard. The big monitor showed a split view, 4 camera feeds from inside the bunker. One was trained on the corridor outside the medical rooms. "Generator is fine, yes?" Peter asked from behind me. He wore his rifle on a sling across his chest, a pistol on his hip. His face was pale. "Generator is fine," I said automatically, glancing at the power status screen. "Voltage stable, frequency normal, nothing wrong with the machine." "Then it is not that," he said. "Look." He pointed at the top left camera window. The corridor outside the medical rooms was empty, lit by dim ceiling lights. At the end of the hall, just visible, was the heavy door to the lower dormitory. It stood half open. "I thought that door was closed," I said. "So did I," Peter said. Rasmus switched to another camera, the small one inside the medical room, in the corner near the ceiling. The picture was grainy, but clear enough. One of the beds was empty. Its sheets were twisted on the floor. The other 2 beds still had patients in them, the concrete worker and the guard. Both lay still, eyes closed. Misha's bed was empty. "There," Rasmus said, pointing. The camera view caught a movement near the door. A shoulder, part of a torso. Someone, or something, had just passed under the frame and into the corridor. "Where is Lias?" I asked. "She was with them half an hour ago," Rasmus said. "She went to get more saline and something for the fever. She said she would be back in a few minutes." Another camera feed showed the junction between the medical corridor and the main hallway. As we watched, a figure appeared there, moving slowly. The resolution was not good, but I recognized the posture. Misha. He moved like his joints had forgotten how to work. Stiff at first, then with a strange, lurching momentum. His hospital gown hung open on one shoulder, and bare feet slapped the floor. His head turned, eyes scanning with a jerky motion that was nothing like the tired man I had spoken to days ago. "That is not just fever," Peter said softly. "Maybe he is delirious," I said. Though even as I said it, I knew that was not it. We had all seen enough video clips from the world above. "Where is Lise?" I asked again. "She went to the storage room for supplies," Peter said. "That is down the hall from him." As if on cue, the camera switched to motion tracking mode, following Misha. He moved down the corridor, away from the medical rooms, toward the supply room door. His steps were faster now. There was no hesitation, no unsteady hand on the wall. Just a straight line from one point to another, like he was following a scent. I realized I was holding my breath. "Cut the feed," someone whispered behind us. "It is too late," Peter said. "We have to move." He looked at me. "Stay here. If we need you to kill power to a section, you do it. But do not open any doors unless I tell you on the radio." He turned and ran. I stayed in the control room, hands on the edge of the console, watching those screens while my mind argued with itself. On one hand, I wanted to run down there too, to help. On the other, I knew I would only get in the way, an unarmed, middle-aged electrician in a corridor that was about to become very dangerous. On the camera, Misha reached the storage room door. For a moment, he just stood there, head tilted, as if listening. Then his hand moved to the handle. It was a simple mechanical latch. Nobody had locked it, because we had not thought to lock internal doors against one of our own. He pushed it open and slipped inside. I could not see what happened next. The storage room had no camera. A moment later, the intercom crackled again. "Control, this is Peter," his voice said, slightly breathless. "Lock the lower-level fire doors. All of them, now." Rasmus's fingers flew on the keyboard. The bunker had a system of fire doors that could be controlled electrically, heavy slabs that would drop down from the ceiling when triggered, sealing off sections of corridor to stop smoke and flame. They could also slow a human being, or whatever Misha was now. "Lower-level fire doors closing," Rasmus said. On the screens, you could see it, slabs of steel dropping into place, one after another. The camera view in the main corridor flickered as the fire door above the camera closed, cutting off the line of sight. "Done," Rasmus said. "Good," Peter replied. "We have Lise. She was in the storage room corner. He must not have seen her at first. She is shaken, but she is not hurt. Misha." There was a pause. "Misha is not responding to voice. He is moving aggressively. We had to retreat and close the inner doors." "So, he is trapped in that section?" I asked, leaning toward the microphone. "For now," Peter said. "But those doors were built for fire, not for this. If he starts hitting them, we will see how strong they still are after 30 years. "What about the other patients?" I asked. Silence for a moment. "They are still in their beds," Peter said finally. "Not moving. We will check on them when we can, but first we need to secure this section." The intercom clicked off. On the screens, the lower-level corridors now showed closed doors, red indicator lights glowing beside them. It was like watching someone build a maze around a problem instead of solving it. I told myself that was the best we could do in that moment. The next 12 hours were a blur of small tasks and big fears. We reconfigured the internal layout like we were fighting a fire. Lower-level sections were sealed wherever possible. Anyone who had spent extended time in the lower dormitory or medical rooms was moved to a separate block of quarters with its own bathroom and limited access to shared areas. Masks became mandatory in all common spaces. We opened the older, heavier isolation doors on the upper level that had been welded open when the bunker was converted. Rust made them hard to move, but a portable grinder and a few hits with a hammer solved that. I rewired parts of the lighting so we could shut down sections without killing power to critical systems. In the process, I learned more about the bunker's layout than I had in the previous 2 weeks. There were rooms we had barely looked inside, storage bays full of old equipment and furniture, forgotten spaces with strange markings on the walls. This place had not just been a communications node. There were laboratories, small ones, with stainless steel tables and floor drains. There were rooms with built-in cabinets for documents, still locked. "Did you know about all of this when you bought it?" I asked Andres while we worked together to shift a heavy locker against an internal door. "We had general plans," he said. "I knew there were extra levels, some sealed, but we have not had time to explore everything." "You might want to keep some of those doors closed," I said. "We have enough problems." He gave a humorless smile. Agreed. At one point, in a narrow corridor near what had been labeled Archive 3, we found an old steel door with Cyrillic writing on it and a wheel handle like the blast doors. The writing was faded, but still legible. "What does it say?" Rasmus asked. His Russian was better than mine. "Something about containment," he said, "and not opening without authorization from some committee." "Is it on our current plans?" I asked. "No," he said. We looked at the wheel. "Leave it," Andres said firmly. "We do not have the luxury of curiosity right now." None of us argued. By the next morning, the infection had claimed more than Misha. Lies reported that both of her other patients had died during the night. One had gone quietly, the other had convulsed, then gone still. She sedated a guard who was starting to show symptoms and moved him into the medical room. "We are not bringing any more people into that lower wing if we can avoid it," she told us in the common room later. "The more traffic, the more chances for whatever this is to spread. I will stay with the patients there as much as I can, but I want someone posted at the nearest fire door. If anyone comes out, it will not be them anymore." Nobody asked what she meant exactly. We all knew. "Is there a chance they can recover?" Katie asked quietly. "There are rumors that some people do," Leah said. "Mild cases. But once they reach the stage we saw with Misha, the prognosis is poor." "We are not killing anyone," Andres said suddenly, as if someone had accused him. "We do not do that. We will restrain, isolate. But we are not going to decide who lives and who dies." Peter looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "We will do everything we can to avoid that," he said. He did not say it was impossible. I listened and thought about what the bunker had been built for originally. Not for humanitarian efforts, for continuity of command, for survival of a leadership group in a worst-case scenario. Back then, they would not have hesitated to make hard decisions. We were not those people, but we were in their concrete box now. Later that day, I went alone to check the door to the lower medical wing. The fire door, there was a slab of steel that had dropped down from the ceiling, guided by rails. A small window of wired glass sat at head height. On our side of the door, the corridor was quiet. A handwritten sign taped to the wall read, "No entry. Masks on. Do not open without security." I stepped closer to the window and looked through. On the other side, the corridor stretched away toward the medical rooms. Emergency lights cast a dim, reddish glow. At the far end, another door stood slightly ajar. I saw no movement. "Hello," I called, though I knew the door was thick enough that sound probably did not travel well. No answer. I felt a strange impulse to test the door, to make sure it was really locked. My hand went to the lever before my brain fully caught up. Then, from the speaker of the small intercom panel beside the door, Lisa's voice spoke, making me jump. "Who is there?" she asked. "John," I said. "I came to check the door, make sure the indicator light is working." "You should not linger," she said. "We do not know how long this thing can live in droplets on surfaces." "How are you?" I asked. "How are they?" "I am tired," she said. "They are quiet for now. The sedatives help, but their vital signs are not good." There was a pause. I listened to some foreign radio earlier. They used the word reanimation. I swallowed. "You think that is accurate?" "I have seen enough to know the usual patterns," she said. "This is not any infection I have worked with before. They do not just faint and twitch. They stay down without breathing, and then they move again." A cold feeling spread through my chest. "What will you do if they wake up again?" I asked. "I will do what I can to keep them from hurting anyone," she said. "That might not be enough," I said softly. "I know," she replied. "We all have jobs, John. Yours is keeping the power on. Mine is making these decisions so other people do not have to." Her voice was steady. That scared me more than if she'd been shaking. "Do you need anything?" I asked. "A fresh mask and gloves left outside the door," she said, "and some of that disinfectant solution. But do not wait, drop them and go." "I will bring them," I said. As I walked away, I heard a sound from the other side of the fire door. A dull thud, like someone bumping against a wall, then another. I did not look back through the window. We lost track of time. Without sunlight, and with the clocks no longer matching anything meaningful outside, hours blurred. We set a schedule based on the generator's runtime and the battery state. Every 12 hours, I checked fuel levels manually, opening the hatch in the generator room floor and shining my flashlight into the buried steel tank. We had a gauge, but I did not trust electronics alone anymore. A stick wrapped with tape at marked intervals told me how many centimeters of diesel sat below. I did the math. Liters, consumption rate, days left if we kept load low. At our current draw, we had just under 6 months, maybe more if we alternated with battery only at night. 6 months for the infection to burn out or take everything. Communication with the outside world was nearly gone. Shortwave brought only fragments. Sometimes we heard a distant voice saying coordinates or warning people to avoid certain cities. Sometimes just static. On the third day after the grid went down, we heard a message clearly enough to make sense of it. It was in English with a European accent. If you are in a fortified location, remain there. Do not attempt evacuation unless you are in imminent danger. The infection spreads rapidly and has been observed to cause extreme aggression and loss of higher functions. There are confirmed reports of people standing up again after clinical death. Repeat, do not assume a motionless infected person is safe. If you have secure shelter, stay in place. We did not need the warning. We were living it. The first time one of them tried the inner door, I was in the main corridor. I heard it before I saw anything, a steady banging, metal on metal, echoing. I was on my way from the control room to the generator space when it started. For a moment, I thought it was someone working with a hammer. Then I realized it was too rhythmic, too heavy. The sound came from the direction of the lower-level fire doors. I felt my legs want to go the other way. Instead, I walked toward it. At the fire door we had sealed earlier, the small window was now dark. The emergency light on the other side had gone out or been broken, but I could still hear it, a heavy impact every couple of seconds. Then, for just a moment, something came into view in the window. A face, pressed up against the glass, pale, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. It hit the door again with a shoulder or a head. I could not tell which. The wired glass rattled in its frame. I stepped back instinctively. The face moved out of view, then back, slightly higher, as if whoever it belonged to was testing different angles. It hit the door again. The sound vibrated in my chest. "Stop," I said, though I knew it did not matter. "You are going to hurt yourself." The banging did not pause. Peter appeared beside me, rifle already in his hands. "Do not stand that close," he said. "If the window breaks, we do not know what will happen." "They cannot squeeze through that," I said, trying to sound rational. "The opening is too small." "They do not need to squeeze through," he said. "They just need to reach you." I stepped back again. "Which one is it?" I asked. "Could be Misha," he said. "Could be the guard, hard to tell." "Lise?" "She is in the makeshift observation room behind the second door," he said. "She has a radio. She says they are getting more active as the fever peaks. They do not respond to voice. They just try to move toward any sound or movement." "That door will hold?" I asked. "For a while," he said. "These fire doors were designed to handle falling debris, but nothing lasts forever." The banging continued. We stood there, listening until it suddenly stopped. The silence that followed was worse. That night, I lay awake in my bunk in the upper dorm, staring at the ceiling. The emergency light cast faint shadows across the concrete. Someone in the next bunk snored softly, unaware. My mind ran through every system in the bunker. Power, air, water, doors. They were all designed to be controlled by humans who followed rules. None of them had been built with the idea that the threat might come from inside. The generator would run until the diesel ran out. The air system would push air through filters that might or might not catch whatever this thing was. The water came from a deep well that did not care about human troubles, pulled up by a submersible pump running on three-phase power. The only truly unpredictable element was us. If someone panicked and opened a sealed door, none of the concrete and steel would matter. I realized my job had changed. I was still an electrician, but now I was also something else. The person who could make it physically difficult for others to make impulsive mistakes. The next morning, I went to the storage room and found lengths of heavy copper bus bar, the kind used to distribute power in old substations. I cut them into shorter pieces, drilled holes at the ends, and lag-bolted them across the inside of select doors that we did not want opened easily. Not all of them, just the ones that led directly to the isolation zones. Andres watched me work on one of the doors leading to the lower level. "Is that really necessary?" he asked. "I know you do not want to kill anyone," I said. "This is not that. This is making sure that if someone decides in a moment of fear or grief to go looking for a loved one on the other side, they cannot do it without thinking very hard and getting help." He looked at the bar. "You think someone will do that?" "I think someone already wants to," I said. He did not argue. He went to help his wife with inventory instead. We lasted almost a week before the first internal fight. It started small, like most things. The plumber, an older man named Tumas, was tired. He had been working on ensuring the water system could be maintained even if some sections flooded, checking valves, flushing old pipes. He also had a son in Tallinn, and with each day that passed without contact, the lines on his face deepened. One afternoon in the common room, he slammed his cup down on the table hard enough to spill coffee. "We cannot just sit here," he said. "We do not know what is happening out there. Maybe they have things under control. Maybe the infection is localized. We should send someone to check." "With what?" Katie asked. "Our one van. Drive down the access road toward the highway and hope nothing is waiting." "Tumas, the radios say most major cities are not under control," Peter said. "Tallinn, Helsinki, Stockholm, all reporting severe outbreaks. There are military messages we cannot fully decode, but the parts we can hear are not encouraging." "They always exaggerate," Tumas said. "Media thrives on fear." "These are not journalists," Peter said quietly. "These are emergency broadcasts from naval vessels and bases. They are talking about holding lines, falling back, seeking safe zones. That is not exaggeration. That is someone trying to keep order while things go wrong." "What if my son is in a safe zone?" Tumas demanded. "What if he is waiting for me? And what if he is not?" I asked before I could stop myself. Tumas turned on me. "Easy for you to say, John. Do you have children?" "No," I said. "Then you do not understand," he said. "I cannot just give up." "Nobody is asking you to give up," Katie said gently. "We are asking you to stay alive long enough that your son has a chance to reach you if he can." "He does not know where this place is," Tumas said. "I did not tell him." "Then rushing out into a country full of infected people and broken services will not help him," Peter said. Their voices rose. Others chimed in. Fear took different shapes on different faces. Some wanted to fortify further, closing off even more of the bunker. Some wanted to consider leaving before things got worse. A couple suggested trying to contact other shelters and coordinate. I sat at the edge of the room and listened, the electrician among planners and guards. After a while, Andres raised his voice enough to cut through the noise. "Enough," he said. "We can argue all day and solve nothing. Our best chance is still here. Whatever this infection is, it moves faster than any organized response. The roads will be dangerous. There's no guarantee that any city is functioning. We stay put. We keep this place running. That is our plan, unless we have hard evidence that staying is death." "And what would that evidence look like?" Tumas asked. "Someone breaching the bunker," Peter said. "Contamination we cannot contain. System failure we cannot repair. Until then, we hold." It was not a comforting answer, but it was an honest one. The evidence came sooner than any of us wanted. It started with a noise none of us recognized at first. A deep, grinding vibration in the bones of the bunker, different from the steady hum of the generator or the whoosh of air-handling units. I was in the distribution room checking a rattling panel when I felt it. The floor under my boots shivered in a strange way, like distant machinery. I put my hand flat against the wall. The vibration was steady, irregular, like someone was forcing something heavy through a tight space. Then the intercom crackled. "Control to all sections," Rasmus's voice said. "We have an alert at the north access shaft. Repeat, north access shaft. Security, please confirm." North access shaft. We had only looked at it once. It was a vertical escape shaft, separate from the main entrance tunnel, with a ladder leading up to a hatch near the surface. The prepping family had found it when they first surveyed the bunker, but they had not fully refurbished it. The hatch mechanism topside was rusted. We used it only as a backup air intake, not as a door. I ran to the control room. On the screen, the camera trained on the north shaft interior showed something none of us had expected. The shaft was a round concrete tube about 2 meters in diameter, with a vertical ladder bolted to one side. At the top, a metal hatch was framed by a circle of weak daylight. And someone was pounding on that hatch from above. The metal flexed inward with each blow. Dust fell in thin streams. The outdated padlock and hasp on the inside shook visibly. We had a camera topside there too, after the family installed the air intake. Rasmus switched to it. The view was from a tree, angled down toward the hatch cover, which lay flush with the forest floor and was covered in leaves and dirt. The camera's microphone picked up faint sounds, thudding impacts, harsh breathing, and something else like a low growl. Figures clustered around the hatch, hands or fists slamming down again and again. Their clothes were dirty, torn. Their movements were jerky, but focused on that one point. They had found us by sound, maybe by the faint vibration of the fans or generator, or maybe by chance. It did not matter. "They should not know this is here," Andres said, voice tight. "They do not know in the usual sense," Peter said. "They are just responding to something. Now they are trying to break in." "How strong is that hatch?" Katie asked. "Old," I said. "Rusty. It was not meant to take repeated impact from that side. If the hinges give way, or the lock shears off, nothing will stop them coming down the ladder except a small grate at the bottom." "Is the shaft sealed to the rest of the bunker?" Peter asked. "No," I said. "There's a blast door at the bottom, but we have had it open for extra airflow. We can close it, but they might have time to get through the hatch and into the shaft before we do. We have to close it now," he said. "If they get to the bottom and find an open passage, we are finished." "How long to the north shaft door?" I asked. 2 minutes if we run," he said. "Do you have 2 minutes before that hatch gives?" Rasmus asked, eyes on the screen. The metal around the hatch hinges was already bending slightly. Peter made his decision. Andres, stay here, watch the feeds. If we fail, you close that internal door and do not open it again. And if you succeed? Katie asked. Then you will see me come back, he said simply. He grabbed his rifle, checked the chamber, and ran. Mart and one of the other guards followed him. I looked at Andres. What can I do? Stay by the north shaft blast door control, he said. If Peter tells you to close it, you close it. No hesitation. And if he is not clear, I asked. Then you use your judgment, he said. That terrified me more than anything else so far. The north shaft blast door controls were in a small alcove off the main corridor near a junction. The door itself was at the end of a short passage, a thick sliding slab that could be moved by an electric motor or by a manual crank if necessary. I reached the control panel and flipped the cover open. Inside were simple switches and indicator lights, open, closed, moving. At that moment, the open light glowed green. On the screen in the control room, the camera showed Peter and the others sprinting down the corridor toward the shaft entrance. The perspective jolted as they passed under ceiling cameras. The next screen over showed the inside of the shaft. The hatch above buckled a little more with each impact. A faint line of daylight became visible at one edge. They're going to make it, Rasmus said, almost to himself. In the north shaft corridor, Peter arrived at the blast door frame. The door itself was open in its recess. He slapped the wall intercom. "Control, this is Peter at the shaft," he said, slightly breathless. "We are closing the blast door. Do it now." I hit the close switch. The motor kicked in with a low whine. The moving light came on. In the corridor camera feed, you could see the door begin to slide out of its recess, slowly moving across the passage. Inside the shaft, the hatch above finally gave way with a metallic shriek. A section of it caved in, then bent inward completely. Figures spilled around the edges, hands grasping the ladder rungs. "Faster," I whispered to the door, as if that would help. In the corridor, Peter and the others pressed themselves against the wall to let the door slide past. It moved at its designed speed. Not too fast, so it would not crush a person, but not painfully slow either. In that moment, it felt like molasses. On the shaft camera, the first infected reached the halfway point of the ladder. Its head snapped up, eyes fixed on the dimness below. More followed, crowding on the rungs. "Close, close, close," Rasmus muttered over and over. The closed indicator light began to blink, then turned solid as the door hit its frame. In the corridor, the door now filled the passage completely, thick steel sealing us from the shaft. There was a thud as something hit it from the other side, a body or a hand. The metal vibrated, but it did not move. Peter's voice came over the intercom. "North shaft blast door closed and holding," he said. "We are clear. For now." Only then did I realize I had been holding my breath again. "Good," Andres said from the control room. "We will keep monitoring. Everyone stay away from that door unless absolutely necessary." In the days that followed, the infected above continued to pound on the sealed hatch from time to time. We could feel it as faint tremors in the walls, but the blast door held. As long as we kept our own doors closed, the world outside would stay outside. The problem was that the world inside had changed too. We had infected in the medical wing and infected outside the north shaft. The bunker had become a fortress and a trap at the same time. Looking back, the worst part was not the mechanical problems. Those I could handle. If a breaker tripped, I could reset it. If a cable heated, I could reroute it. When the generator started making a new noise, I spent an entire afternoon under its housing, tracing vibrations, tightening mounts. The tasks were concrete, with clear causes and effects. Human problems were not like that. Tumas kept pushing to leave. Lise kept spending too much time in the contaminated wing, refusing to let anyone else take her place. The guards were stretched thin, trying to watch external cameras, internal doors, and each other. One evening, as I walked back from the generator room, I heard raised voices from the lower-level junction. "You will not stop me," Tumas was saying. "I am not staying in this hole while my son is out there. You cannot keep me here by force." "You are free to go," Peter said, voice calm. "We are not jailers, but you are not opening any sealed doors. If you want to try your luck, you take the main tunnel and we will not follow you." "The main tunnel?" Tumas laughed bitterly. "The entrance where you say there may be more of those things waiting? That is just a different kind of suicide." "Then maybe staying is the better option," Peter said. I turned the corner and saw them. Tumas had a backpack over one shoulder, stuffed to the point of bulging. A coil of flexible water hose hung from his hand, as if he could not leave without some piece of his trade. His eyes were wild, darting from face to face. Peter stood in front of him, unarmed for once, hands open at his sides. Mart was nearby, leaning against the wall, watching. "Tumas," I said, "you know the roads are not safe." "Nothing is safe," he said. "At least out there I can try. Here, I am just waiting to get sick." "You are not coughing," I said. "You have no fever." "Yet," he said. "We breathe the same air as that wing, no matter how many dampers you close. It is only a matter of time." "That is not certain," I said. "What is certain is that if you go out there alone, with no clear destination and no support, your chances are low." He looked at me, eyes moist. "You do not understand, John. I have to do something. Sitting here, listening to the generator hum and the air fans, I feel like I am losing my mind." I had no answer for that. Peter sighed. "If you go, you go," he said. "I will not shoot you, and I will not lock you up. But you will not come back without quarantine. If you step out through that blast door and then decide you made a mistake, you do not get to change your mind and waltz back in. We cannot risk contamination." Tumas laughed sadly. "So I either stay in the box or walk away from it forever." "Yes," Peter said simply. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Tumas dropped the backpack. It hit the floor heavily. He sank to his knees beside it, hands covering his face. "I do not know what to do," he whispered. "None of us do," I said. "We are making it up as we go, but we are stronger together than spread thin." We took his bag back to his bunk. He did not mention leaving again the next day, or the next, but the restlessness did not disappear. It just went quiet, like a live wire buried in a wall. Days blurred into a routine of checks, briefings, and waiting. We established zones, clean sections, where nobody with symptoms had been, and gray sections closer to the infected wing in the north shaft. I moved my tools to the clean zone and did as much maintenance remotely as possible. When I had to enter a gray zone, I wore a respirator and gloves, wiping every surface I touched. Lise reported that the infected in the medical wing were now completely unresponsive to attempts at communication. They moved only when they heard a sound or saw a shadow. She kept them confined with restraints and furniture. It was not ideal, but it kept them from reaching the door. "I'm not sure how long I can keep this up," she admitted over the intercom one day. "I am sleeping on a cot in the hallway now, so I can hear if something changes, but I am not young." "We can rotate someone in with you," Katie said. "No," Lise replied quickly. "We do not need more exposure. I know what I am dealing with. others do not. It was the same argument each time. It was hard to tell whether she was protecting us or keeping control. We rationed food. Even with good stocks, feeding 17 people 3 times a day added up. We cut down to 2 proper meals and 1 lighter one. Nobody starved, but hunger gnawed at the edges of patience. Sleep came in patches. The bunker's artificial day-night cycle helped some. We dimmed most lights for 8 hours, left only emergency strips and small lamps on. But the knowledge that something inhuman was only a few doors away made true rest difficult. One night, I woke up from a brief sleep to find the power off. At first, I thought it was another transfer test. Then I realized the generator's hum was gone. I grabbed my flashlight and flicked it on. The emergency lights had not kicked in either. That meant one thing, a main breaker or cable fault in the distribution room. My heart rate jumped. If we lost power to the air system or water pump for too long, our carefully balanced environment would start to fail. I shoved my boots on and ran. The distribution room was dark when I got there, the door standing slightly ajar. I pushed it open with my shoulder. The beam of my flashlight swept across cabinets and cables. The familiar shapes comforted me. I made my way to the main breaker panel and opened it. The big breaker at the top, supplying the entire bunker from the generator, was in the off position. Someone had flipped it. I stared at it for a moment, not believing it. Breakers can trip on their own, but this one had a stiff mechanical action. It did not just fall. I reached out and slid my fingers along the handle. It was warm, like someone's hand had been there recently. A sound behind me made me turn. At the far end of the room near the door, something moved in the dimness. A shape shifted slightly. "Who is there?" I called. The shape stepped forward into the beam of my flashlight. It was Tumas. His face was pale, eyes wide in the reflected light. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He held a small tool in one hand, my insulated screwdriver, I realized, and his other hand trembled. "Tumas? What are you doing?" I asked, mind racing. He blinked. I heard a noise," he said. "I came to see the lights were already off." He swallowed. I did not touch anything. The screwdriver in his hand told a different story. "Why is my tool in your hand?" I asked. He looked down at it, as if surprised to find it there. I do not know," he said. I thought maybe I was going to help. I stared at him. The bunker felt suddenly smaller. "Step back," I said. "Slowly, do not touch anything." He obeyed, moving toward the door. I turned back to the breaker. There was a small, fresh mark on the plastic near the handle, like it had been pried with something. The insulated tip of the screwdriver would have fit perfectly. With a deep breath, I reset the breaker, pushing it firmly to the on position. There was a clunk as it engaged, and a moment later, the hum of the generator returned to full load. In the corridor outside, I heard relays click as emergency systems came back online. I turned to Tumas again. "Why would you turn off the main breaker?" I asked. "I did not," he said. "I swear. I was thinking about the noise. Constant noise. The generator, the fans. I cannot sleep. I wanted silence. Just for a while." He stopped, realizing what he had just admitted. "You see," he said, voice cracking, "I am losing my mind. I did not mean to hurt anyone. I just wanted a moment without that humming." "The hum keeps us alive," I said. "I know," he whispered. Peter appeared in the doorway, having been drawn by the power loss. "What happened?" he asked. "I found the main breaker off and Tumas in the room with my screwdriver," I said. "He says he did not mean harm." Peter looked at Tumas, then at me. "We need to talk about this," he said. They took Tumas to a small storage room and closed the door. Not a prison, they said, just a place where he could calm down under supervision. I fixed a lock on the distribution room door. From then on, it stayed closed, and only a few of us had keys. The bunker grew narrower again. In the end, survival in that bunker came down to a handful of choices, made in corridors and maintenance rooms, not in grand strategy sessions. Lock this door, not that one. Trust this person, but add a backup in case they fail. Keep the generator running, even when the noise frayed nerves. Keep the infected sealed away, even when the human part of you wanted to believe there was still a chance. I was not a soldier or a leader. I was a maintenance worker, an electrician. My job was to make sure electrons went where they were supposed to and stayed away from where they could cause harm. In that bunker, the infection felt a little like bad current. Invisible, dangerous, always looking for a path. So I treated it the same way. I traced its possible routes, air ducts, doors, skin contact, and I helped put in breakers, barriers, and insulation, not just in cables but in routines and rules. We did not solve everything. We lost people. We lived with fear and tension and the knowledge that the concrete above us was all that stood between us and a world gone wrong. But the light stayed on. The air stayed moving. The water kept flowing. And for each day that the infected beat on the north shaft hatch or the medical wing doors without getting in, I counted it as a small victory. I did not know what was happening in Tallinn or Narva or the rest of Estonia. The radio spoke of safe zones and lost cities in equal measure. Maybe someday someone would come to that forest bunker and knock on the blast door with a human hand, offering organized help. Until then, I tightened screws, checked gauges, and listened to the hum of the generator like it was a heartbeat. It was not heroism. It was just doing the job in front of me, with a concrete ceiling over my head and the memory of old wars in the walls. And in a world where both old secrets and new infections had come back to life, sometimes just doing the job was the only thing that kept us all from falling apart. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.